Welcome to NewYorkBIO's Emerging Company Showcase, an event series partnered with the New York Stock Exchange to bring New York's financial community together with groundbreaking companies. In the first of two planned events for 2021, we are focusing on European and UK-based companies that could tap the US public markets over the next 12 to 24 months. We appreciate the sponsors of our event series, Woodruff Sawyer, Goodwin, Newmark, Moses and Singer, Trinet, and PHCBI. And now we have a deeper dive with Michael Soldan and Djordje FIlipovic, CEO and Chief Commercial Officer, respectively, of AB2 Bio.
Both of you. So, Michael, Djordje,
yes.
it's a pleasure to have both of you here in the run-up to NewYorkBIO's Emerging Company Showcase that we do with the New York Stock Exchange each year. What we've tried to do here is pull together companies that are that have the potential to tap the public markets over the next 12 to 24 months. And we're always excited to bring together a small yet really exciting slate of companies. This year, we've focused on companies from Europe, and we're very excited to have you and AB2 to present with us next week. So just as a bit of an introduction, if both of you could tell us a little bit about yourselves and how you got to where we are today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much, Derek. So my name is Michael Soldan. I am with AB2 Bio now since 1.5 years. Before that, I was in general management for Fresenius Kabi for 3 years, and before that with Merck Serono, which is in the US EMD Serono, and before with a couple of other big pharma companies. And I started my career in development, regulatory, clinical, stuff like that, and went later on into general management. And I'm now in general management since 7 years. So I did a lot of build up also in the past. For EMD Serono, I was building up the biosimilar business. We had divested it then afterwards to Fresenius Kabi. I introduced it in the enterprise. We launched the first products, and next product is coming soon also to the US market from them. And after 3 years, I decided then to do something different, go in a startup company. It was important that we have an asset in the startup company, which is a real asset where I could strongly believe in, where I believe we can make it happen rather sooner than later. When I say make it happen, I mean bring it to the market. We have very rare diseases in our development with high unmet medical needs. So it gives you also a lot of payback when you're doing things like that. So you use what you have done in the past, also then for a rare disease with a high unmet medical need. And I think this satisfies me. That's it in a nutshell.
That's exceptional. I mean, there are so many patients with challenging and rare diseases that, you know, their journey is something that, you know, most people can never really appreciate, but it's, you know, kind of the hard work of the industry that can bring a little bit of hope and hopefully better clinical outcomes to people when we build on the backs of good science. Definitely. So Djordje, over to you.
Thanks for having us, Derek. I'm Djordje FIlipovic. I joined the company about a year ago from Novartis, where I spent more than 25 years. Initially in research, I joined Novartis coming from the US, where I was doing my early lab work. Then spent most of my time doing late stage development, assets, and early commercialization and general management. Novartis gave me the opportunity really to get in touch early on with startups, because I was in California for a while when more than 20 years ago, we had the first round of cell and gene therapy at Novartis. And then also by being accountable for Gleevec, which was a rare disease drug, very close to patients and really one of the paradigm shifters in the industry. And those viruses never went away, and I was very happy now that I got the opportunity to join AB2 Bio and try help our patients and also get Taptekinic to the market as soon as possible.
We are very pleased.
Yes, it's always exciting. You know, you have with the level of, you know, kind of hope that patients have and things with startups, it's genuinely exciting to get to work on something where you can really see, you know, how it can deliver. And with any startup like that, there's always an arc and a story. It always kind of came from somewhere. And a lot of the times historically, it's really good to understand where that drug came from and kind of what had to happen in order for it to get to patients. So can you give us a little background on the company? Because the company is about 10 years old or 11 years old. And how did the company get to where it is today?
Well, there's a nice story behind, and the story is that Merck Serono in 2010 was, no, they started already with the development of this drug earlier. They were doing the standard approach. That means you put it into an inflammation disease, or rheumatoid arthritis, psoriasis. This is what they did. And then just check, does it work or does it not work? And it did not work. They had by far enough in the pipeline for development. That's the reason why they said, let's stop it and give the out-licensing a chance. And the out-licensing was more or less done to one of the Merck Serono guys who was part of the development at that time. So that means he took it over. He was a strong believer in that drug, even if it did not work in the first 2 clinical studies. And then he was building up AB2 Bio, concentrating on tyrosine alpha. And at that time, there was not much known about interleukin-18. So tyrosine alpha is interleukin-18 natural occurring blocking protein. So that means it blocks IL-18 with a high affinity in a way which is also naturally occurring in the body as such. And that is, I would say, is one of the really big differences from our drug to monoclonal antibodies. We have a super safety profile, just to say it, and it works very specific. But just to tell you the story to the end, they raised the first money. They were then looking into indications which are driven by interleukin-18. So because then you can precisely go in such a disease. And what they found was a disease which is called NLRC4, which was described first in 2014. So there's a mutation of this NLRC4 gene. And this mutation causes then that you have an overshooting reaction of interleukin-18. You have a strong release of IL-18. The release is then signaling to the immune system that there should be an attack to a structure, and the structure in the body is the body-own structure, it's the organs, and then you have a very, very severe inflammation. And if you don't treat that, the babies are dying from that. So the baby was treated after they found the first NLRC4 mutation in a baby. It was treated with a lot of different drugs, and nothing did really work. And then they were reading the first articles about IL-18 BP, and they asked for compassionate use treatment at that time. And then the baby was treated, and I always hear the story from our chief medical officer. He said a day later, the doctor came into the hospital and he thought this is a different patient. So that means there was a very strong impact as the inflammation went down. You could measure this, and then I think you had giving this baby the chance to have a normal life. We have this baby now since 6 years under treatment, under compassionate use treatment. So we have, of course, also photos from her in our office. And we are receiving also from time to time new photos, and the baby had a chance now to live a normal life, and this definitely makes a difference. So the story behind is only look into which inflammations are driven by interleukin-18, very specific, and then you can treat specific, and this is what AB2 Bio has done in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you think over the last decade, the amount that we've learned about the immune system and about either specific cytokines or anything like that, or specific drivers around certain diseases. And as you said, we've identified new diseases. So really the number of places where we understand, and hopefully the number of places that we can go in the future where we can actively target something for these rare diseases because we know what it is, it's genuinely exciting. Right now, you think about this journey where most of the time when each of these things were started, they weren't sure. They're looking for some hope, or they're looking for, hopefully this will work in this given indication. So it's really, you look back on this last 11 years and you're thankful that the one scientist believed in it, right? Because by doing that and by doing all of that extra work, you've now given all of these other patients a chance. So in thinking about this, you have, a lot of patients and a lot of families, a lot of children that you're working with here. Can you talk a little bit about how the company approaches kind of its relationship to the patients, or its relationship to the families and parents, because it's actually a very complicated issue?
Definitely. I think this is one of the most important topics, that you understand the disease, that you understand also how the patients are suffering from that, how you can support them. So this was one of the reasons why we were starting also our compassionate use program. The benefit for pharma is, of course, you are helping this patient, at the same time you're getting a lot of data, safety data. You can provide more and more evidence that you're on the right track. But the physicians are very important. There is a handful of physicians in the US who really understand this disease and who have the contact then with the patients and with the parents from these patients. Most of the patients are young kids, of course. And the patient foundations, this is also very important. So the HLH Foundation, for example, in the US, the SGIA Foundation, these are foundations we're working together with, also for our clinical study. They find also sometimes physicians who understand this. It is very important that parents, for example, when they get the indications the kid has, that they are going through the internet, see what can I do. The physicians are quite often not so familiar also with these very rare diseases, because they are very rare, of course.
They've never seen them.
Exactly. So they can make up their mind, they can contact the patient organizations, and then there's an education from both ends. And I think then there's also a good chance that you can control such a disease, and that the quality of life comes somehow back for the kids, but also for the parents, because also for the parents, this is a big challenge, of course.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm glad that you brought up the foundation aspect. There are so many groups that work either from an advocacy standpoint or from the standpoint of simply helping the families understand the journey that they're on. You realize that, of all of the, kind of impacts and forces on a patient's life, there are a lot of different groups that can help. And I think, in general, everyone wants to try to help. And, it's good when companies actually embrace, that entire, what I'll call an ecosystem of support, because it's never just one patient. It's a patient, it's a family, it's the people around them, and certainly the doctors and the medical system that are, again, just trying to get it work. And thankfully now, we're in an era that's easier for physicians to connect. It's easier to share data and information. So one would hope that, the knowledge around rare diseases, or the ability to identify a rare disease, only gets better and better as we get more connected. So that's really exceptional. I did want to ask you a little bit about, since we're bringing companies in from a number of different companies across the EU, and we're used to dealing with the US, hearing about companies that spring up out of San Diego, out of San Francisco, out of Boston, then more and more out of New York City. I wonder if you could talk to us a little bit about just the environment for startup companies in Switzerland. What's it like to start a company in Switzerland? What's it like to grow a company in Switzerland? Can you just give us a little kind of local perspective on your surroundings, and on how easy it is to get talent and how easy it is to build a company?
Djordje, do you take this over?
Thank you. I think Switzerland is a small place, but very international, especially from a scientific perspective. We have a few leading universities here with the EPFL, where we are on their campus, and also with the ETH in Zurich. And there's a lot of activity now with startups. We have come in Switzerland relatively late, so this is a new development in the last 10 years or so, but now it's accelerating tremendously, and there are various initiatives to support startups. And I think the environment is almost changing by the day, or improving by the day. And the closeness to the universities I mentioned, the international setup of those universities, I think makes it quite straightforward to find talent and take companies like ours to the next level.
Maybe one sentence to it, where we are in the EPFL Innovation Park. So it sounds great, and it is great. It's exactly what Djordje said before. It is a part of a big university. So where your spin-offs of the university are, you work together with the young companies. There's a lot of activities going on. You have also scientists which you can hire if you want. You can even use parts of a lab if you want to have additional lab and just rent it for some time. So this is, I would say, a very good place for us. And that's also the reason why I like very much the setup in Switzerland when these cooperations between the universities and the young startups is made, and there's an exchange of whatever you need to build up a company. Huh?
Yeah, that's great to hear. I mean, I think we're getting to the point where we realize that science happens everywhere and new company formation can come from anywhere. You know, I think universities are getting better at understanding where their innovations fit into into the broader picture of things, and are getting much better at having contact with investors and about having the ability to kind of start to get things off the ground.
Yeah.
So that's terrific to hear, and I feel like we're going to see more and more of that story at this event and at others that we're going to do. So before we close out, I want to understand a little bit about where the company is now and what you can see for the company over the next, say, 3 to 5 years.
Well, let me start, and then Djordje, you can jump in. I think we are now in a phase, in the late stage development phase, which is one of the most crucial phases of the company. So we are doing now the final recruitment for our phase 3 study in a very rare disease. We are starting the commercial manufacturing, the validation batches. We are raising the money. We are preparing us for the BLA. We talk to the main authorities, to the FDA, to the EMA, to pave the way that we can have a smooth application end of 2022. And that is also the time where we want to go public. So this is a time frame for us, which is, I think, for this company very, very crucial. And also, just to mention it, I think there is a very nice development in the company in that direction. So what we are doing with the money which we are currently raising, we bring in people who have the knowledge also to do the last step. That is important. Mm-hmm. And then the product is on the market.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Companies have these phases where each one has this level of just this mountain of monumental work, and once you climb that mountain, there just happens to be another mountain in front of you that you have to climb. And
yes, very much.
You need not only do you need to climb a new mountain, you actually need different equipment to climb the new mountain. So Then you have to go and get different equipment and equip the company to do the whole thing. But hopefully, I would very much like to. I would very much like to see your ticker symbol on the screens behind me at some point, maybe perhaps at next year's event. And I would really love to hear about how this drug is actually getting to patients. So I wanted to thank both of you for joining me. I think this was terrific. We're really excited to have you guys present at the Emerging Company Showcase. You're exactly the kind of company we want to see here, and to you, to the company, and certainly to the patients that you're serving, our fingers are crossed. I wanted to wish you best of luck with the outcome of the phase 3 trial. So thanks so much to both of you. I'm really looking forward to seeing your presentation on Wednesday.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on A Deeper Dive. We're looking forward to the Emerging Company Showcase on June 23rd. Special thanks again to our sponsors, and for more info, visit us on www.newyorkbio.org or on Twitter @NewYorkBIO.